The year is 1943. The place is Bengal, now divided between India and Bangladesh. And there's a famine, one that killed 3 million people. But this story is about Britain. It's about how London caused this famine. For over 2 centuries, the British East India Company ruled over India. So by 1939, when the Second World War began, Britain no longer needed Indian food. In fact, they began hoarding it. Whatever food they did not need was sent to Europe, and whatever was left was taxed heavily. This was done in Bengal, one of the most densely populated areas in the world. At least 60 million people lived there. Between 1939 and 1945, the price of wheat rose by 200%. The price of rice, 180%. Between 1941 and 1943, the production of rice fell by 50%. People left their homes in search of food and jobs. Many ended up in Calcutta, the present-day Calcutta. There wasn't enough food for everyone. We'll bring you more episodes from the series The Untold History very soon. Soon, people began eating anything they could lay their hands on. Dogs, cats, monkeys, even the carcasses of cattle. Survivors say those who could unfind food were locked up in their homes by their families, so that they would unembarrass them by begging. Those who survived the famine became resistant to the British Raj. The seeds of India's independence movement were sown during this famine. Leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru realized that only a free India can end such famines. By 1943, the entire stock of Bengal's rice was exported to Britain and Burma. None of this, however, appears in history books. But that is the whole story. They exploited the land, the people, and the resources. Then came the British Crown. She says, quote unquote, "There was not a single day that I did not see people die. Men, women, children, all of them were dying every day." Today, 75 years later, many parts of the world are still reeling under the impact of colonialism. Famines, food shortages, poverty, inequality. All of it is a result of the British Raj. We've been telling you stories of the untold history for the longest time now. Stories that shaped our world but were never taught to us in school. People would come to the ghats in the morning and jump into the river. Others died while begging on the streets or at the railway stations. Another survivor said, "It was a horror-stricken thing to witness crowds of emaciated human beings, dragging themselves along the road in search of a morsel of food." These are not descriptions from a war zone. They are from Bengal. They took over from the company, but the exploitation continued. He was the British Prime Minister during the Second World War, a staunch believer in the superiority of the British race. He never bothered to hide his racist views. He once described Indians as a beastly, degraded people, and that attitude was reflected in his policies. Churchill ensured that Indians kept getting poorer. By 1914, when the First World War began, India was supplying food to Britain. Wheat from Punjab, rice from Bengal, cotton from Madras. In fact, the entire British Empire depended on India for food. Now, before we begin, some background. But after the First World War, things changed. New crops were developed, new technologies were adopted. It's said that if urgent and effective measures are not taken, there is a great danger that starvation may claim a large number of lives. What was the British government's response? They ignored the report and they continued hoarding food. Do you know why? Because they needed the food for their soldiers fighting in Burma. This part of the story is often ignored, but it is crucial because it tells you who was in charge then, who was making these decisions. So when the British began hoarding food, people started starving. By 1943, the situation had become dire. The British government in Delhi received a report, and that story begins with a man you must have heard about, Winston Churchill. I will give you some examples, some data. Let me tell you another part of it. Here's what a survivor said about her ordeal. This famine led to a mass exodus. That's how the British ruled India. They starved millions and created an independent India. If you want to know more about such stories, all you have to do is subscribe to this channel.